success is like this elusive thing. Like it's really not amount of money you can make.
Yeah.
It's really impact, and it doesn't matter if what kind of business you're in. It's the why. If you want to change your culture, change yourself.
And I'm not like the front person or anything. And
Every now and then, right?
I'm always like a behind the scenes kind of person, you know? And I am still hearing like people all the time about our church is.
Yeah. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Entrepreneur Experience, where we talk everything entrepreneurship. We got Joseph Caro here.
And Jared Taylor. And
a special guest, Sean Petrie with Real Life Church.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, dude. Thanks for having us. Thanks for being on the podcast. So the Entrepreneur Experience is all about entrepreneurship, leadership, and a lot of things in between all that stuff. And so the guests that we bring on are not always an entrepreneur, but they're really strong in leadership. And I've got to know you a little bit, but I hear a lot about what Jared says about you and how you lead your church. I was really excited for you to come on the podcast today and just kind of talk about, not just church, but definitely church and leadership. And I've always found that great pastors kind of have to run their churches like a business structure to make sure that there's organization and leadership skills are involved, because you're dealing with not just paid people, but a lot of volunteers and a lot of emotions, a lot of, so. Yeah,
there's a lot of pieces to it. You're a CEO, and you're called by God, and you wear all the different hats, And leadership is super important in a church, Typical structure is like pastor, and then like everybody goes to pastor.
Yeah.
That's like the typical structure of a church. And
so the depth chart of that is like pastor.
Yeah.
A million people.
Yeah. Like all the decisions are made by one person. I mean, you kind of start off like I guess it would be like a track team where like you do everything and everybody watches, and there's like nobody else doing anything. And that's where most like structures kind of stay.
Well, I mean, I kind of always grew up in small, 30 people to 100 people churches where that was pretty much it. Like the pastor ran the entire church, did all the Bible studies, ran the board meetings, did.
Yeah.
And even as a kid, I always thought, man, dude, you have no time for yourself. Or, when I would try to hang out with their son, because I was good friends with some of their kids, coming over to their house, they were always on some type of counseling call or something like that. So I think early on as a kid, I never wanted to be a pastor.
Yeah.
Don't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's you see that in Moses, right?
Right.
In just taking on everything instead. We always say people have a number on their back, and you try to find those people that got larger numbers or help people discover or grow into larger numbers. But if you don't see people and develop people, you can just get burned out. I mean, there's so many pieces. And it's like any entrepreneur. I mean, just owner operator.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm thinking the same thing. Yeah. Operator.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm real excited that you're here.
Yeah.
I'm talking. Well, everyone listening, you don't know who I'm talking about. Sean, Pastor Sean. Actually, for the longest time, you probably had the issue with identifying yourself as Pastor Sean, because you I don't know if you guys know this, but pastors are humans.
Yes.
Wait, hold on. let's break that down just a little bit. Wait, so you're not perfect, dude?
Exactly.
So when you first,
all right, I'm done with this podcast. I thought we were no.
I'm done. Oh man, no, I thought they were aliens.
Got polished by Halo.
Yeah, yeah.
Depends what religion you're in, I guess.
I mean, how many different types of Christians are there? Denominations and
oh man, how do you know?
Too
many to count.
Well, sorry, I screwed you up. Keep
no,
going.
It's cool.
Keep going.
Well, I really grew up around Sean, and then when I was in high school, he was stepping in to take over that youth ministry.
Oh, okay.
I think it was in the summer of my freshman year.
07.
Something like that.
Somewhere 07, yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, I wouldn't forget.
Summer of 07, I was class. Yeah, that lines up. Yep.
Dude, that's so long ago, but not so long ago.
I know, it feels forever ago, but that's the first iPhone, by the way.
Really?
iPhone, it came out in 2007. Yeah, and I had my first iPhone all the way until 2014, so I'm like one of those relic guys. I paid for it, hold on to it. And then I finally was like, okay, it's actually...
It's not working anymore.
I've had this longer than I should. So
wow. Yeah, so he was my youth pastor. And then I went to college for school. Or, well, duh.
Yeah.
For
Did you go to college for something else? I mean, a lot of people go to college
do.
for other
actually,
reasons.
I
dude.
didn't go for school.
Yeah,
I went
MRS
for
degree.
Yeah. There's a
Well, don't
college.
feel bad about going to college for other reasons. I went to church because my now wife was there. So
That's right. Missionary
Yeah.
dating.
I was kind of like,
Kind of the opposite.
forget God. I hated my parents the way they did it, but hey, that girl is pretty hot over there. I'll
There's
come
a-
to youth group. I'll
Yeah.
come, like.
That's how it works.
There's a college called Baptist Bible College in Springfield. A lot of people called it Baptist Bridal College.
Oh, because you come back. Did you come back with the wife?
I only went for a year there and then realized, I just want the music part.
Yeah.
I didn't need a whole degree for this. I just want to go out and learn the modern music. And so I went to Colorado Springs and got a certificate in worship leader ministry. But it was then that, I left the youth and started entering into adulthood more in college age. And I was like, man, I am not going back to my home church. If they call, I'm not. But Sean calls. I don't know if you were paid to persuade me or if you were being truthful. No,
Well, we
he's
could
being
we
truthful.
could be truthful now, Pastor.
No,
Yeah,
he's already married.
Nobody put him up to it. So
But the way he put things and everything, and he's like he had this big I see in you kind of conversation and stuff. And I was like, you know what? Why not? Why wouldn't I do this? And then also in the back of my mind, I don't know if you know this, but I was like, there is this girl that's there too. And she was maybe.
This is your wife, right?
Maybe.
Like,
And it was, yes.
okay, cool.
And it was.
And it became,
it was.
it
Thank
became
God.
Rose.
I'm looking out for you, Rose. I'm looking out for you, making sure he's talking about the right woman.
But I was on a hike in Colorado, like in the mountains and stuff when I was,
Providence.
thinking of things like that. And,
Cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, so all that to say, we come a long ways, and it's because of him that I entered into my first really full-time career. And then from there, I moved seats into the video world, and that's where we got all the reps out of, like, getting those testimonial videos and all of the stories out of my system. And it's really all give credit to Sean Petrie over here.
And God.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah, your pastor
God
reminding
used you, and you answered,
Well, I think it's kind of divine. Like, I don't know. There's something different in Pleasant Hill. There's a lot of Pleasant Hill guys that are in my youth group.
That's where I'm from.
Yeah. I would say something.
That explains it.
something in the water. There's a lot of creativity. Well, in your family, especially music, video, all sorts of things. But yeah, during COVID, especially, this guy filmed us every week, put together everything. Like, our church wouldn't even be where it is today without him. Stories, and you're passionate about it, and you're good at it. So it's cool to see what God's doing. Elevating to a level and taking on responsibilities. And I play a little small piece of that, but not much.
A small piece was a fulcrum, though.
Yeah.
Dang, he still won't admit that somebody put him up to getting you back. So,
And I don't know if you know this too, but if we start getting into his story, he's run businesses as well. And he's very smart in all of that. And he came up to this point where he had to decide to sell it or not. So
why don't we get into that? Because I really wanted to hear your story. The question was going to be like, hey, give us the 10,000-foot bird's eye view of who Sean Petrie is. Like, there's time on this podcast, so just kind of from the beginning to where you are now.
Beginning
like,
to now. So I'm Kansas City, born and raised, out of Raytown, and kind of like lineage, like my mom, my stepdad, my dad, like all my family is from this area. Same thing for my wife. And so for me, I just really thought, like, if I could make enough money in my life, then I'd be happy. So when I set out, like, from like probably 7th grade on, like I never got anything less than an A. Like, I was like, I'm gonna just take life by the horns,
Right.
And I knew I had to work for every opportunity. Like, I feel like I didn't want to like take anything off the table. So by the time I graduated high school, I mean I'm speaking of graduation. I'm like third in my class. Like, had a full ride to Baylor, like pre-med, tested Calc 3. I'm all ready to. This is definitely God's will. I'm on the water skiing team. Love slalom skiing. So that's kind of I thought was all going to make it work out. And there was this guy that disrupted my life, and it was at a youth group, and he's just it's like a spiritual dad to me. And his name's Mitch Black, and he had the wealth, he had knowledge, but he still served in youth group, and it just didn't make any sense to me. And so he kept challenging me, like, hey, if God's in it, follow God. I've been on a lot of missions trips and different things, and I just knew what I was doing was just about me.
Yeah.
And so, but that spirit, like, like to tackle life, it just kind of translated in. I didn't start going to church or following God till I was in high school. So I don't come from this like church background. Like I don't have the right last name. I don't have the pedigree. I don't have the right words. Like I'm like salty. I'm a blue collar pastor. Like
The books of the Bible, remember?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, Psalms, Malachi,
Job.
I literally asked my friend.
Habakkuk.
But I know nothing. So,
what was it? What Key and Peele?
Timothy,
Timothy, right?
It was a lot like
Present.
that.
Present.
Present.
Aaron.
Oh.
Aaron, right?
O'Shaughnessy, or how do you say it?
O'Shea Hennessy.
O'Shea Hennessy. Yeah.
Aaron, yeah.
Yeah, Aaron. Yeah. But so anyway, from that, I ended up going to basketball college, which I had never stepped foot on the campus. I went from Baylor, it's like gold-plated parking garages, to these back barracks of Springfield, which, I was like, if God's in it. And that's an interesting school because, Bible college it's just a very interesting culture. Like you're in this bubble.
Yeah.
But yeah, out of that, I started working at my, if you can call it home church. I've only been there for like 3 years, kind of, and just didn't get paid a lot. So I started what I always affectionately call was like, my other job, or like I call it side business, but really there's not like a side business, but
It's either in business or not.
yeah,
right?
business or
Like,
not, yeah. And so out of that, I became a general contractor, did snowmobile landscaping, home remodels, additions, like painting. It's kind of it was too broad to be really successful at like one great thing, but at the time, like you just kind of picked up pieces and it kept the bills paid. And then 2000 would have been 15. I was just stretched everywhere. We had foster kids we'd taken in.
Oh wow!
And I was married for like a year and a half, and we took in 2 foster kids out of our youth group. And 14 and 15 years old, and ended up adopting the younger one. But all the trauma, everything goes with it. And so my wife had started grad school at UCM. She's a nurse, going to be a nurse practitioner. She's still at Church of Mercy. So it's like super crazy busy. And then like kind of like almost like a battlefield at home, because it just, with the dynamics, it was really tough.
Well, being a year and a half in your marriage, those are volatile times, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I remember my first 5 years, we were getting to know each other again, and
Yeah.
all the things that frustrated each other, those were like very accentuated. And
Yeah.
I could imagine just adding
It was tough.
all of those factors in there. Like,
What was really cool about me, my spouse Diane, it was just like there's a divine flow there that we both come out, like we both graduate. We were friends in high school together. She was a year ahead of me. Very similar situation. Like both our families don't come from Christian backgrounds. Like so we had like a lot in common, and we had dated for long distance, almost 4 years. She was in Cedarville, Ohio. I'm in Springfield, Missouri, 600 miles. But what was really interesting, I didn't know this for years later, but we felt called to like serve God full time through our lives, like whatever that looked like. I have no idea what that was.
Yeah.
It was at the same like camp, the same nighty camp, the same speaker at camp, the same person, the same sentence. Like we could go back.
You guys, huh?
Yeah, we both went outside and prayed, different people, different times. Years later, we found out that we'd actually both said yes to the Lord. I turned down a 4-year scholarship to Baylor to go serve God and learn the Bible. And the only reason I went to Bible college is because I didn't know the Bible. So I figured I might as well know the Bible, right?
Right.
Made sense. And so it's just really cool. So we've had this like, I don't know, I feel like really just like divine flow.
Yeah.
And then out of that, like I knew my calling wasn't to like build buildings and like, take care of that. Just wasn't like, a lot of great people do it. It's a lot of people's mission field. But for me, it was like, dude, this is just taking time away from what God has for me. And so I lay at the altar and sold all my stuff, sold my equipment, sold my contracts, like walked away. And, a lot of people you think would champion that, like, but a lot of people were like kind of the opposite, It was like, how does one do that? Or like, must be nice. Like, it was like a real negative thing for a lot of my friends that like I looked up to. And so I was like, wow, like that's interesting, like people have a hard time. The more successful you get, the less people are happy for you. And you see that, like, it's like, oh, I'm got to be careful at talking about going to vacations or just doing certain things. You're like, oh, like we finished a pantry. We mentioned that the other day, and somebody's like, oh, that must be nice. And
which is really weird because like, everybody, especially those people who are negative, they want to be, celebrated with whenever they go through something good. But you said something about being successful, how the more and more successful you are, you kind of know who's actually for you or who's against you.
Yeah.
And it's funny how like your environment of friends
Shrinks.
and family members shrink. And it's typically the ones that you actually don't think are going to leave you or treat you that way that do it, and it actually hurts a lot. Like,
Yeah, it stings, because there's people who think that like it's a motive check, right?
Yeah.
Like if you win the lottery, like be careful who you're friends with,
Yeah.
Like everybody
just
wants
don't say anything. I'll take the
everybody wants your
anonymous.
money.
I'll take the anonymous option, right?
Yeah,
So,
pretty much. Yeah, it's and being a public spot, like they call it like a fishbowl for say, but like you just if you like I bought like a really nice truck recently, right? And but
it must be nice.
I must. Yeah, I'm
just joking.
Yeah, it must be nice. It's nice for me.
Yeah.
It was nice, 3,500, dually, like all the things. But like I wanted it because it had like a new engine that was like 60,000 miles on it. The rest of it I could really care less about.
Yeah.
And I got it for like 25 grand, which is a
Dude,
steal of a deal for
a
what
diesel?
it is. Yeah, diesel
Oh my
Duramax.
gosh.
I mean, it's like super nice. People, my neighbors think I'm bougie. Like, man, I told him, he's like, you got an $80,000 truck. I'm like,
I got it for 25 grand.
25
though.
grand, brother.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh man, but there's just this image, like, it just, you kind of create this, I don't know, the more you're successful, be careful who, like, people don't cheer you on. It's like, there's a question people just fail to ask. And there's a difference between like a broke person and a poor person, I mean, a poor person, it just has a mentality of like, it'll never happen to me. It's just not fair. They're very much a victim,
It's a mindset.
It's a mindset,
It's
yeah.
a mindset. And that, honestly, that has no boundaries on like gender, race, religion, anything like that. Like, I've learned that poverty is truly a mindset.
Yeah.
And on top of that, living in this country.
Yep.
Let's just put it that way. Like, I'm an immigrant from the Philippines. I mean, if you want to know what poverty looks like,
Yeah.
let's go to Southeast Asia. Let's, and I've always talked about that. But, dude, truly, poverty is a mindset. And I was there. I kind of gave into those lies early on, because I grew up in Asia. And then, as a little kid, came over here and grew up in the worst ghettos in San Diego, Southern California. And so it was always like, well, this is kind of how things are always going to be, because that's what you're told.
Yeah.
Until I noticed, well, there's entrepreneurs who are red and yellow, black and white that are rich. Let me figure out how to do that, right? So,
Well, yeah, the richest group of people in the United States is like Indians, like from India.
Indians and Asian.
Yeah,
Yep.
save their money, and of course you're right next to the Jewish Community Center.
Yeah.
I mean, they're very, very well put together. It's very interesting, like the way you see life, and it kind of comes down to the questions you ask, like, I can't versus how can I.
Right.
Yeah.
How can I? Have you seen those videos? People see somebody drive by like a really nice like Ferrari or something, and they're like, "Hey, how'd you do that? How can you do that?" Like instead of just going,
How can I get there?
I'll never be there.
Yeah.
How can it?
Yeah.
And it's just a learning mentality. Well, that's Jared as well. We used to have a phrase that said, be a learn all, know it all.
Yeah,
I'll learn it all, not know it all.
I actually heard you say that before. I'm
Then
going to learn it all.
Then we took it to another level
Yeah.
and said, be a teach it all, don't be a learn it all, be a teach it all. So not just like don't
It doesn't just stop with you.
Yeah.
You're
share that knowledge, which is really what this podcast is probably about, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's just sharing knowledge. I mean, and just really kind of helping our audience see that, number one, there's hope, because your story can probably touch somebody, or somebody might be familiar with maybe how you grew up or what
Yeah.
you're going through. And then we're entrepreneurs. Let's throw some answers out on this table. Like, what did you do?
Yeah.
So how can they do it?
Yeah.
Have you seen that movie? Oh, crap. Will Smith was in
crap.
it.
No.
No, not crap.
Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah. Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah.
Like the
We
part,
reenacted that movie.
Down
the
the
part
streets
that
of
changed his
downtown.
life was when he saw a broker getting out, I think, a Lamborghini or something like that. He's like, how can I get
Yeah.
something like that's the question. How can I get something like that? Or he said, what do you do and what do I have to do to
Yeah.
get
What do you
there or
do?
something?
Yeah.
So, and then he's like, okay, mindset change, right? From I'm this broke salesperson trying to sell these outdated, medical instruments,
Yep.
to, okay, let me shift, let me make that turn. And when you watch that movie, I don't know how accurate it is to the real life situation. However, I think that they really depicted, a pursuit of happiness. Like, he didn't stop.
It's a true
until he got
story.
it. It is. I don't know how accurate,
Yeah.
the Hollywood version is to the real, but still, I read the story of the actual guy, and it seemed pretty accurate for the most part. But the thing is he came against all these odds, but he was looking for that success, that wealth.
Well, what's
whatever it
the old
was.
statement? Fortune favors the bold, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's the guy willing to take the risk.
Yeah.
I mean, and he had a why. Like, I mean, if he didn't have his kid in the equation, like, would it have
have
happened?
been that, yeah.
Yeah, because when you put his kid there, and it's like when you start realizing when you run your business, that when things don't, like when you're kind of lazy about things or like you don't follow up on something or all these pieces, you're robbing not yourself, you're robbing your kids. And when somebody doesn't pay you or like somebody doesn't follow through or like you have someone on your team that just isn't pulling their weight or all these things, they're not stealing from you personally, because sometimes we can endure a lot. They're taking from the legacy you're trying to leave and the mission you're trying to reach into. And so you almost got to be a little bit of, I don't know what the word is.
An a-hole.
Yeah, there you go.
Just a Christ-like version.
Yeah,
is there a Christ-like version of an a-hole?
I was thinking like mean with the vision,
Yeah.
Like you almost got to be a little mean with how you run your business in a sense of, because you care about it enough to say, hey, I love you, man, but we're just not going to do that.
Yeah.
And but it's a great movie.
In
Like
all
direct,
honesty,
right?
Well,
That's
direct, yeah. Well, in all honesty,
Bold.
you're being bold. The wrong person will always interpret that as mean.
Yeah.
It's not that you're being mean. As a matter of fact, you're trying to do the rest of your team a favor.
Yeah.
If you have somebody who's like not pulling their weight and really bringing the entire team down, you risk poisoning all the other people that actually want to do something and have a vision with you that bought in. So if they come across, you will always come across as mean if you fire somebody, right? Like, or if you tell them something straight. But I do it for my family and the rest of the team.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I see it.
No, you're 100% right. And I mean, if you're talking about a Bible verse, like leaven the whole loaf, right?
Yeah.
But then the other side is like people, different personalities have idea of success. Like some are like everything got done, or everybody's happy.
Check
or
off the
like
list,
we don't,
right?
yeah, we don't know. We didn't care we got anything done, but everybody agreed. There's like probably 4 or 5 major ways of seeing things, and one of those is like people pleasing. So it's like I don't want to upset that one person, but it's like if you really loved what you're trying to accomplish, you wouldn't rob from your customers or in our situation, like, or maybe our youth kids or our parishioners or like the people we're trying to reach, you wouldn't rob from them. And so it's like, why would you allow that to happen?
Yeah.
And then it looks bad on you if you allow it, because now all of a sudden it's like, well, why would that person tolerate that? So it speaks more to you than really the person. So it's just like life. You get handed things, sometimes you pay somebody else's debt,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I'm doing that. Student loans, right? I'm paying somebody's debt.
It's true.
Man.
It's true.
We did throw a little bit of politics in here because it's important to business, right?
Yeah. I mean, politics tie right into it.
Tie right into it. Even churches, too. Like,
Yeah.
well, do you have any other questions? I can see you smiling and everything.
You're talking about how other people kind of react and how they take it, and it's like, how much of our responsibility is it for what we say for them not to be offended, So it's like how other people interpret it, how much of it is on us for that. I don't think like hardly any.
Yeah.
But I'd be curious, like how do you walk the line of how someone takes something and how much do you nurture that?
Well, I mean, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, when you communicate, you try to, it's like you try to help the student understand.
Yeah.
But there's some people that just won't understand. And so they just choose to have that mentality, and that poor mentality, that low mentality. But you always say like kind, clear, bold,
Yeah.
That's all you can do. I mean, is it good and helpful?
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes it's just like, sometimes you just don't say like, the fool seems wise when he shuts his mouth. If you know it's not going to work out, you don't have to say everything.
Yeah.
You just say the things that are just helpful for it to move to the next thing.
Yeah.
And that's all you can do. Like, it wouldn't work if you were Jesus, like, it's just, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have a core value that our team works with and says, focus on what matters, let go of the rest. And it depends on the season of business, the season of life, season of emotion that we're in, too. Like you said, if you understand that this person's really not going to get it, like, I don't know if it's a Bible verse or just a wisdom, saying, but you can't reason with the unreasonable.
Yeah.
So if you have to communicate with someone who's unreasonable, just say enough, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't need to try to reason with them as to why. It's, well, this is how it is, and that's because I want it that way, right?
Yeah.
But
We like to say that's how we do it here.
yeah,
Because there's a lot of ways we can do it. We try to like share, like agreed expectation, shared expectation. Like we kind of line around that. But if, like you said, I think the verse is like you can't reason with a fool.
you can't reason with a fool.
Yeah.
But something I've learned, because I used to pride myself in just being a very bold and very blunt person.
Yeah.
And I truly become an a-hole. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people just didn't like me. A lot of people that I shouldn't be pissing off, right?
Yeah.
And so I took that as like a badge of honor. Like, I'm just a successful, blunt entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was successful. I was blunt, but I just pissed off everybody, and I probably lost some opportunities because of that.
Yeah.
Because it comes across as cocky.
Yeah.
I think something that we really have to focus on, especially if we desire to be great leaders, because John C. Maxwell said a great leader is someone who can easily influence somebody.
Yeah.
Right? Like, to be able to influence is a characteristic of a good leader. And it's like, okay, not everybody can adapt to my communication style. Let's just say I need you in something, like God has put you in my path. I also have to understand how you need to be communicated to so I can get a good result from this relationship. And sometimes that means I have to alter and make effort to communicate the right way to you. And I learned this being a coach, and I used to be a youth pastor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm communicating with hundreds of people a week, and they all have different ways that they communicate. And if I truly want to get a great result from, if I have to ask the staff for something or get my team to do something on time, I also, as a leader, need to understand how they should be communicated to so that they can understand the project and actually get it done. Now, I can still be bold and blunt about it. Let's just say they argue back about it in a way that's like not acceptable, or they're just not performing, and I've tried different ways, and it's like, okay, now we're at a point where if you don't get it done right, then it's probably going to be your job, right?
Yep.
So there's still a point you can be that way, but I've learned that in order to influence, I also have to make effort to communicate according to your style.
Yeah, and it's important to know that with people. I mean, there's a lot of different personality tests, or where you want to do all sorts of things. We do the DISC, and
I do DISC, yeah.
Myers-Briggs, and the DISC is like super easy.
I feel like it's more professional.
Yeah, I think so too. You can tell mine is?
Well, he probably knows mine more than I know mine, because
You're probably an I.
You're a high I. I can already say you're a high I.
I think it's
very
changed
low
since I last
C.
took it.
Yeah, very low C. Yeah. But that's creatives in general. It's like herding cats. They live in that space of the imagination. They see what it can be, and that's a gift. Like, a lot of guys go back like a C. They're just like very. I mean, it's an accountant. They just want to see numbers and do the thing. And so I'm actually a DIC, so it's perfect for my personality.
DIC.
Oh my goodness.
I've known people at DIC. I'm an IDC.
IDC. So yes. So
and S is just really low. I don't mind. I mean, I'm like, change, great. What are we changing to?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
But my C is adaptive. It comes up like when I'm in coach mode.
Yeah,
I have to be a lot more organized, a lot more methodical about how I ask questions. And I have to learn how to shut up and let them answer. You know what I mean? Like,
personalities can change based on the environment you're in, right?
Well, you have natural and you have adaptive.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So the
DISC,
adaptive
right?
is...
Yeah.
I have a high adaptive. Depends on who I'm with. For real.
Right.
Like, I've noticed that. I am who I am, and I won't hide that.
Yeah.
And especially at 32, some people's like, that's young. Some people's like, that's old. But I'm like, hey, this is the age where I don't give a... about what you think or whatever. I'm just going to be.
Maybe your
who
adaptive is a DIC. Just like
That's right.
But it's weird. It's like, I think in the back of my mind subconsciously, I be the kind of thing that is lacking.
Yeah.
So like if I'm in a room full of really great leaders, I usually keep my mouth shut a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus like if I'm in a room of like a bunch of people not making decisions, then I start becoming like the guy that's like direct and making decisions.
Yeah.
Let's just go. Come on. Like, why are we standing here?
I think that's the personality of a high I.
Yeah.
Is it?
Well, you also want people to like you, right? Like when
Yeah.
you're influential, you're the life of the party, but you also kind of desire people to respond back to who you are. And I get that way too. Like sometimes when I'm in a room full of like people who are way more successful, way more, in my eyes, successful, more money, more business, sometimes I'm a little bit more quiet until I get to know them. And then all of a sudden I'm just loud.
Yeah.
And,
I do want people to like me, but I don't care if they don't like me.
Yeah.
I've learned to like Taylor Swift it. Shake it
Taylor
off.
Swift.
There's a great resource, and I wish I remember the name off the top of my head, but that basically pairs up all the different personalities and like what their roles are like in an organization. So like if it's kind of paired more with the Strength Finder, but if you do like if somebody has like the strong gift of woo, they would say like, hey, this person would be fantastic at the first contact of a customer.
Oh.
So like I've got a lady on my staff team and high woo, high I, like all the things. And, you know, she struggles with admin, all this backside stuff, but like will never cause a problem. Super connector, brings everybody to church. And you know what? Like here comes Mother's Day. Where am I going to put her at? We're at the front. You know, you connect with people. And so before you have a hard conversation with anybody on your team, you need to look back. Like if you have a file folder on the edge of your desk and then go, hey, how's this person think? You know, because it's really discouraging. Like, and I've done it wrong where, you know, I'm coming at it one way and they're just not wired that way. And as a D, like you're just like, come on, let's get it done, you know? And you can really frustrate your team by just not leading the right direction. Just because you guys come to see the same thing. It's just, his personalities are huge, you know?
And you have that saying, like, maybe they're just in the wrong seat of the bus.
Well, and a lot of times we have to really think about it like that. Sometimes as a high D, because I'm like, I and D are like right there. It's above 95. So, you know, I'm really high. And sometimes like, all right, I'm ready to fire this person. I'm ready to... And sometimes I have to think,
do you listen to music before?
did I truly give them what they needed? Did I empower them? Did I train them? Or did I over expect from them?
Yeah.
Right? Because if they're an S or a C, they freak out with D's most of the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not much a S, but a C especially. Like they clash because a C's like, I need time. I need to be locked in the closet. I need to like get it done. And I'll come back to you with what I have. And I'm the type of person that's like, I'm texting my team, here's another idea. Do this for me.
Yeah.
And so they had to like create systems around my issues where we got a CRM system with task finders, due dates, all that kind of stuff. So now I'm just sending out tasks, due dates.
Yeah.
And then we have team meetings and say, hey, there's a lot of tasks here. Can we park some of them? Because one of my staff members, and she's great, she's a high C. So it's like, I really got to be careful because my I and D stresses her the crap out.
Oh yeah,
you know,
you're running wild, and they're trying to nail you down.
They're trying to nail me down,
and you need everybody. And that, when you hire, and it's a good point. Like you have other people that you hire for your weakness, right? Like you want to maximize your strength. You want your primary role to be in your strength zone.
Yep.
And I think it's a lot of reasons to work with a great team. And when you're hiring, like I'll always look for people that are different than me. Like I don't need two of me to do the same thing and I think the same direction.
Especially at DIC, there's only one.
Yes.
One, right? There's only room for one.
I like that. So. I like that.
Literally, today's verse of the day is Romans 10:14. How then can they call on the one that they have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? The gospel needs to get out, and video is a great way for you to do that. Jared and his team at JT Visuals have a passion for getting the gospel to the lost. They want to use your sermons to create 1-minute clips. These clips will be used on social media to reach people where they are. If you're serious about reaching more people in this way, then you need to book a time with JT Visuals.
You're probably an entrepreneur trying to find solutions for many things in your business. You might be frustrated in a sense that you're not hitting your goals revenue-wise and profit-wise. Maybe you have a great business, but you're not able to connect with your team and get them to buy into the vision or get them, motivated to go and do more. Maybe you're hitting a glass ceiling with your goals, so you know exactly how to reach goals, but now you've hit a glass ceiling and it's like, okay, I don't know what to do next. Well, you've reached the right place. My name is Coach Joe. I'm a coach with Action Coach, and my goal is to help business owners learn how to build a commercial, profitable enterprise that could work without you. My belief is this: if you lay a great foundation for your business in 4 areas, your vision, your money, time, and your delivery, everything you build from there would be much easier. You can market better. You can create systems better. You can build a team better. And eventually hire people to replace you so that you can enjoy the fruits of your labor in your business and have something that works for you and it's paying you and it became an asset. From there, you can sell your business, you can franchise, you can do whatever you want. You can start another business. So I'm doing a complimentary 15-minute Coach on Deck call, and you'll get access to my calendar, and we'll have a conversation very soon. So Pastor, I'm really interested in just kind of hearing a couple of things that you define in the entrepreneur space and in the ministry space, like leadership and success. One of the best questions I find that I ask entrepreneurs is, like, how do you define success with, what you do and how you do it? Like, what is your definition of success?
Well, in ministry, I kind of have this tongue-in-cheek answer where I tell people I'm still married and my kids love me. you know,
Right.
because you could really run that into like a lot of ways. The temptation is always to look at numbers, like how many butts are in seats, buildings, budgets, and butts, 3 B's of church, right? And not really see like the transformative things that God's doing. And so it's more of like, what do you see God doing now, and are you content with it? Success is like this elusive thing. Like it's really not amount of money you can make.
Yeah.
It's really impact, and it doesn't matter if you're what kind of business you're in. It's the why. And so I feel a lot of people in ministry burn out because they just don't feel like they're having a big enough impact for the return. And I think it's just seeing like big people. And so for us, we just kind of think small. I know it sounds kind of weird. We have big vision, but then it's moved through people. And so a lot of it's just developing leaders, if you want to call it disciple making, but a lot of it's just were you faithful with God's put in your hand, you know? Because sometimes you get dealt. You don't get sometimes to control the cards you get dealt, you know?
No, not at all.
So it health. It's a lot of health, I guess. Is it healthy? Is kind of more of a question I look at. Like success is such a you want to feel like you're making a difference. I think the Bible says encourage each other daily. So you know, the root of bitterness. It's so easy to like, I'm not hitting that. I'm not hitting this. And I like when COVID hit, you know, our church was like 3 years old, and I'm like, that's really gonna really be bad for us to get anywhere.
Well, it was a big freak out moment for anybody, especially
we were in a school
you know?
for school, you know, basically kicked us out for 5 months, and you're wondering like, did I just I sold a second home and to pay for a lot of the, you know, it's like, well, I guess maybe we're gonna survive, you know. And then, but it's really, if you start looking at the numbers, like honestly, it sets back 3 years in a sense of like a budget or numerically and these things. But it's just like, hey, just trust in God, you know. I mean, if I'd have planted 3 years earlier, maybe we'd been in a building before that, right?
Yep.
And so it's
and that
easy
could have
to
been that could have been devastating too.
Yeah, because you could have had this big, giant mortgage and then have nobody to pay, or like it's not.
Yeah.
So it's like, am I content in the Lord's timing right now? Like, and that's really success, you know, because it's all just it's just wood, hay, stubble mostly, right? So,
well, what you said something you talking about vision, right?
Yeah.
And I believe in vision. I mean, when we first started coaching, a lot of it was just like vision, defining it. Like, how important is vision to your definition of success?
Oh yeah, they're tied hand in hand, you know. I mean, your vision is like your preferred outcome of the future, you know. I mean, you see, and leaders always see further and farther. That's the job of a leader. Like that's why you are the leader.
That's what makes
That's what makes you a leader.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because you can see what it is becoming, and those guys that like jump on early or like understand the changes. I mean, like Jeff Bezos, you know, it's like realizing
Elon
like
Musk,
you realize that this brick and mortar is disappearing, you know, and this is the new world, you know, and that's the new thing.
That's what's happening. Yeah,
I mean,
after that, it's Dune.
That's
where Dune takes place. It's futuristic, but there's no AI or anything because they already had that battle.
Right.
Just by the way, sorry.
Dude,
side thing.
The nerd came out, but it's all right.
Anybody that relates, let us know. Type Dune in the comments.
Type Dune in the comments.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and so it's important. Like, so we have for our organization is a vision frame. It's almost like you're looking out in the future, and you'd say, "Hey, there's the mountains," and that's like 5 years, you know. Right. And then here's like 3 years out, and here's I can see some more like detail. And here's a 1 year out. Like this is where I feel like God can bring us, or like the vision can reach in a year, and then we break it down to like here's what we're gonna do this quarter. And so we align that with each of our staff, so we kind of understand like how are we all moving. So we have these, if you want to call them micro goals, but there's quarterly goals for each staff member, and they all move shared expectation towards that vision. And so we've aligned around that, and you know, you can change the vision. I think you're married to the mission, like it don't matter. But the vision,
sometimes the vision changes.
Yeah, it changes.
Like, you talk about COVID.
Yeah.
What did that do to a lot of people's vision? Oh, right? Well, it changed, right?
Well, you pivot, you know, and you make some adaptations, and sometimes you realize your vision maybe is a little, you know, it's tough because sometimes you want to shoot for the stars. You don't like go or go too low. You know, you
got to stretch yourself and be a little fearful of it, but at the same time, it should be tangible, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's not. Sometimes it's add a 0, take it times 10.
Okay.
Like, how would you do it if you had to do like, and that's more of a scalability issue, but you know, if you had 10 times the amount of clients, like, what would you be doing? You know, like sometimes the foot only grows as big as the shoe.
Yeah.
Right. And that's actually truth. It doesn't grow any bigger.
Well, it's like a crab, right? Like if they want to grow, they have to shed their shell.
Shed the shell. Exactly.
And then get into a bigger one, and they grow into the bigger one.
Yeah. And you're
right.
sometimes
You didn't know that?
No, that's a good analogy though.
It is. It is like that. And lobsters are the same way too.
I
Right?
know this is gonna sound so unspiritual, but I mean it's not. It's not.
Is it the DIC coming out?
Yeah.
Is that
It's not unspiritual, but most of the reasons churches don't grow bigger than they are, it's structural, it's vision, and it's the willingness to change.
Yeah.
I mean, most people like give an opportunity to change. It's like that's just a lot of work. Or the 5 dying words. I've never done it that way before. Never done that before.
Yeah.
And
or I've been doing it like this my whole life.
you're stuck.
Yeah.
And
If
so,
it ain't broke, don't fix it.
you basically don't realize like a leader always reinvents himself every time.
Yeah.
Every struggle, every challenge, you always are redefining and reinventing who you are. And I've noticed the guys that are unwilling to do that, they quit pretty early.
Yeah.
And there's an entrepreneurial spirit to leading. And and there's a lot of good second seats. Like if God's called you to that, or you want to be in that.
I've been to churches where I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't be the lead pastor. You should probably be the helper or the
second guy.
But here's a statistic that I learned from churches, and you said something very, very. It was important. You said that people or pastors that have churches that are dying are not willing to change the way they're doing things for the better. Did you know that churches are the most segregated organizations on a Sunday? Like,
the World Series church there.
Yeah. So we have, the Mexican church here, the white church, the black church, and then everybody's like, it's just because this is my style. This is this. And so I go to a church in Westport, ran by Pastor Brian Rose. You know him.
Yeah.
And his vision was always, we want a multicultural, multi-generational church. For many different reasons. And I'm looking at the church, I'm like, wow, he's accomplished it. But there has been a lot of pushback on that. But he's pushed through it, through COVID, all that kind of stuff. And it's really cool because he actually talks about that vision all the time. To where if you're there like 2 Sundays in a row, you'll probably say that. This is a multicultural, multi-generational church, and it's all about discipleship. So like you were saying, like vision is really, really strong. And repeating it to your organization over and over and over and over, so that way you can do those quarterly plans and the annual plan. So that way it's like they buy in. It's not just, hey, here's a plan. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Vision is
Nobody
also
follows
meant.
that.
A vision is also meant to inspire and to get people to buy in, right?
Well, the vision, when you vision cast, the difference is you create the need.
Yeah.
And not saying the need. It's like now.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, oh, hey guys, there's a problem. Nobody responds to that. Like you say, hey, there's a problem. And then you might say, hey, there's a solution. And nobody responds to that. But if you say, hey, there's a problem and there's a solution, but here's why, we have to do it today. And the other way of doing it, which I think is almost better, is to say, if we don't do this, like the worst case scenario, doomsday picture, hey, if we don't change, like if you're talking to older people at the church and you're like, hey, if we don't make these changes, your grandkids will not have a church. All of a sudden, it's like, well, I guess we maybe get behind that. It may not be my favorite thing, but I can see where you're coming from. But if you're unwilling to cast that like doomsday picture, oftentimes people will they just kind of like play it safe. And there's not a lot of fruit in the safe zones. You got to go out, you know?
Well, most people are safe players.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're comfortable being the pew warmers, the sheep, and then
they won't play it very safe.
They won't play it very safe. And in order to really, make moves, you have to kind of be extreme with what like you want to do and what your vision is.
Well, they say if you don't hemorrhage the vision, people won't even notice it.
Yeah.
I mean, if it isn't like in your soul, ingrained in your heart while you're doing it, they're never going to see it, And it's like a culture. A culture is caught. It's not taught. Like you can put this thing on the wall, okay? And it's funny too. Sometimes they're not the same, you know. And it's like you guys have no real passion. It's just like everybody do their own thing. But when you have a centralized vision, it's like this synergy, and it's bleeding out of you. Like guys, we got to do this. Like Steve Furtick, he set a vision out to reach the whole state that he's in, South Carolina, I believe.
Yeah,
that's
and that's Elevation Church, right?
Yeah, Elevation Church. Yeah, it's like what a vision. I mean, day one.
Well, they went beyond the state of I mean, everybody's singing their songs now, like right. That's part of the worship lineup set. There's a lot of Elevation songs. My sons always sing it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but
what is that song about? Like dry bones. Dry bones.
Yeah, dry bones come life again.
Yeah. Rattle.
There we go.
Yeah, rattle. Yep.
But like, it's so funny. I'm thinking like as you were talking about leadership and vision, and it has to hemorrhage and all this kind of stuff, and it's caught, not taught. Like vision is definitely caught. Like I'm going back in history because I love history and looking back at great leaders, and sometimes we only try to look at the leaders who did good.
Yep.
To understand like what it is, but if you really think about it, like this is also dangerous because you can actually influence.
Yeah, the wrong way.
Look at Hitler, look at Stalin, look at Mao, right? Like that vision was caught. The vision of communism was caught. The vision of National Socialists, the Nazis, that was caught, and people got behind those atrocities because you had a person who was able to cast that vision and hemorrhage it and get them to buy in, or even if it wasn't a buy-in, but it was just so influential, and everybody else started doing it. It's like, well, let me just kind of go along with it,
Yeah, and you got these people in the extreme brokenness, and especially coming out of World War I with the Nazi Party.
Yeah,
and it was easy for them to fall behind the rhetoric of that, but to really not know what that really entailed. But they were so bitter and hurt, and they stepped in.
They were trying to find somebody to blame.
Yeah.
Well, here's Hitler. I got a couple of people to blame. I got a couple
we went from taking all your weapons to forging one of the greatest armies ever built, and it's amazing.
It's funny how they did it twice.
Yeah. Propaganda, right?
Yeah. Oh, my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's a hidden truth. There's more than meets the eye, but
JT Visuals.
See how I robbed that? I robbed this natural saying.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. I walked right into it.
Well, I was like, he must have known.
It's like when you say, like, you're watching a movie and they say the title of the movie in the movie.
Yeah.
And you're like, haha.
Yeah. Haha, gotcha.
That's pretty good.
But, okay, so we talked about a little bit of success. And the last question I really kind of want to hone in on you is, like, what defines a great leader?
Well, I mean, it depends on who you ask.
I'm asking you.
I know.
I'm asking the DIC. What do you think?
The DIC. Oh man, from my perspective, humility would be probably the number one characteristic, because I think that obedience to God, submission, the humility to realize it's not all about you, that's selfless. Yeah. So humility would be the biggest piece, because you can make great decisions and have no team. You can be the guy that takes the ball down the court, slams it down the goal, scores the points. Yeah, you won the game, and there's no team behind you.
Oh, like LeBron? Did I say LeBron? Is he watching?
A lot of those guys turn into that pretty quickly, right? Yeah. I mean, so I think humility is a huge piece of it. I'm going to say EQ makes a great leader. Emotional intelligence. And you mentioned that earlier. I mean, when you walk into a room, like when you're not – the smartest person does the most talking. That's what leaders do. They listen. And if somebody's smarter, you just go, I just want to be around. I want to be in earshot of what that dude's saying.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick his brain because I need to know something that guy's got, and that tenacity. Like, I mean, I think about Craig Rochelle, and he met this guy in the airport, and he said, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to have multi-site, and I'm going to do these videos. And he said, Craig, you're talking about having 3 services. And he said, that's the problem with the young people. You think too small. He goes, you need to have 7 services at one location. And he came up with a term that no one's ever heard before and very people ever measure. It's called a chair turn. And so, like, how many people sit in that seat on a Sunday? So, or throughout a weekend of services, right? So, like, his philosophy was if you have 3, 6, 7, the building cost stays the same basically outside the water, the toilet flushing,
Yeah.
And then other than that, like, there's more money coming in for the church to afford the other locations. So he said, Craig, you need to think about having 5, 6, and 7 services on a weekend. This is before anybody's been multi-site. The multi-site, it wasn't a word yet. Yeah. We're talking like 2000.
2000s, yeah.
Yeah, and it just early on. And so but there's the emotional intelligence to realize there's somebody smarter than you should ask questions. And then, of course, it's amazing because in the story, Craig obviously comes from this guy, and this guy's dying, and he shows up on very much his deathbed, and he says, hey, just so you know, we have one of our locations is launching their 9th service on one of their weekends this weekend. Oh, wow. And he says, problem with the old people. I was thinking too small.
That was a nice little one right there.
It's like, man, way to go, Craig.
Yeah. That's good closure there.
But so I'm constantly learning from those people. And it's some are at distance and some are up close, but there's emotional intelligence too of how you lead.
Yeah.
To realize, like, is this helpful to that person? and is this the right time and place? And high EQ, like if you don't have high EQ, I don't know how you'll make it as a great leader. Like you just, I mean, you talk about emotional intelligence. You mentioned some of these guys, Hitler and these guys. The emotional intelligence off this chart, it's almost like manipulative emotional intelligence. It's to the level of its selfish gain, all these pieces. But to realize like how do they connect?
You got to be really smart to be able to manipulate, and you got to be really smart in order to like be a narcissist. I mean, narcissists are smart people.
They're very
psychopaths.
I mean, they're very much. And then
they are.
So say EQ, I'd say humility, and then I mean, other than that, I'd say hunger.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like a Patrick Lencioni kind of mentality.
Patrick Lencioni.
Like you kind of like you need that desire to.
Well, you can't teach that, you know. Like it's like you cannot. It's like a speeding ticket, right? Like I love when people on the team get too far ahead, and you're like, hey, wait, hey, let's slow it down. That's pretty rare. And parking tickets.
We're oftentimes encouraging people to get speeding tickets.
Well, we're like trying to get, we're riding parking tickets, and I'll be honest with you, like most of those people probably just got to move on.
The parking lot that we talk about, like,
it's just your drive and motivation to own a task or own your position.
I love that. It's like, I get really excited about that. Yeah. But then I'm like, hey, how much of that do we have to park in the parking lot and revisit, right? But like, let's not suppress that though, because it's really good.
Yeah. Well, you can't steer something that's not like a ship has to be in motion to turn it, right? I mean, just a little adjustment and 4 or 5 degrees this or that. But if somebody's just sitting their butt, I mean, it's like a dead fish can float downstream,
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a waste of it's just.
Well, they're just riding on the backs of what everybody else is doing.
Well, at most organizations, let's be real, 20% of people do
80-20, baby.
You got it,
80-20.
And so it's but to find those people, but great leaders. And they have just a bold vision as well that goes with that, and they're relentless about it.
Emotional intelligence was something you talked about. How important is it for a leader to really set the pace of the environment despite maybe chaos? Right, like because we talked about how the majority of people aren't leaders; they're sheep. They go with the flow. But in a leader's mindset, you're going through a lot up here physically and everything like that. Like, how important is it for that leader to really set the tone of the emotion despite, what's going on? Like, is that what you're talking about with emotional intelligence?
Yeah, I mean, everything with emotional intelligence, like when to speak and when to not, when to listen.
When to draw in the sand.
You wouldn't draw on the sand, when to shut your mouth. I mean, especially in marriage or hey, like it's like this is not.
No,
okay,
no.
You're ringing a bell there. That is true. What time of the month is it? Don't say anything.
Hey,
I'm just kidding.
it's just
babe. If you're watching this, I'm not listening to anything that they're saying.
My wife is not watching this. There's no way she's watching.
He's a DIC.
Just shoot you straight.
Yeah.
No, but when you're an organization, like your team takes hits, I mean, Psalm 69, here's got Peter quotes Psalm 69 as Jesus ascends in heaven, and they're staring up, and of course, Judas, he kills himself, he buys a field with the money he got for betraying Jesus, and so Peter, like, just all of a sudden, of course, he'd been restored, but like, he stands up and he says, the elephant in the room, hey, Jesus is there, and our good friend just killed himself, and he lives in that moment, and he sets like that emotional intelligence, like what's the people to hear right now, and he just had this walk with the Lord, and he went back to Psalm 69, and it's amazing because the first verse of Psalm 69 says that he goes, Lord, I'm drowning, I'm neck deep. And I thought if anybody knew about neck deep, it'd be Peter.
Oh yeah,
because he drowned.
He drowned off the boat without faith, and it goes on to say like this person's made for destruction, and we're gonna find like he goes Psalm 109, and so it's just like this. There was this emotional intelligence, like what these people need to hear right now.
Yeah.
Because you recognize the needs of your team. Like sometimes we want to get a project done, but you realize like their life is falling apart.
Yeah.
They're hurting, or like, hey, maybe we just got to redirect the timing. Maybe I'm pulling too much, or maybe that person needs a push. And so a lot of it's just when to say it. Like emotional intelligence is understanding like how people are connected to their work and connected to each other. And I mean, I've worked with guys that have very little, like low EQ, and they're managers. They come across as transactional, like they want the product, but they don't see the people. And EQ people, emotional intelligence, you see the people, and you can motivate them the best ways to get the results as you want. But if you don't have that, I feel like you just are great. You're a good manager, at best.
Well, managers like go give me the results. Follow these systems, have them follow the systems.
Yeah,
it's very just boom, 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 boom. Right?
Well, they say people quit bad bosses, not bad jobs.
Exactly. Exactly. They do
And
that.
so the emotional intelligence is realizing.
Is that a Patrick Lencioni thing too?
I don't know
or
where that's from,
that was a
but
leadership thing.
it's got to be one of the
or
greats.
Jocko
I don't know.
Willink or something like that.
Something I haven't read.
Yeah. I mean,
Now
I
you know
didn't
it.
know that. Cool.
well, culture trumps everything too, and how emotional intelligence is culture. Like, because you realize the problem of the culture, and you've seen it with these big businesses that have created managerial mindsets, and they've basically let their people kind of manipulate things to the point where there's lawsuits, litigations, people have been killed, and instead of just saying, like, let's try to create a healthy culture, you kind of see that with the flywheel and good to great,
Good to great, yeah. Well, something that I like to work on with my clients, especially when I first started, is like vision and mission, obviously, but then how do we create a culture around this? So that way, because you're telling me like, oh, so-and-so quit, or I'm trying to, they're always like arguing about like our vision and everything. I say, okay, cool. Like, talk to me about your culture. Like, what type of culture do you foster in your business that makes them want to do that? Because like you said, people don't leave businesses. They leave managers. They leave leaders, so are you an effective leader? Are you influencing them enough to really buy into that vision that you have in culture? And
most people don't put any time into that at all. Like,
No, you're
just like,
absolutely right.
Their metric is if I could just paint more houses, then I make more money. And they don't understand, like, there's a whole system and people behind all that, and how do you motivate them, and how do you keep everybody on the same page? Culture is so important, and I think the main culture that the world has shifted into, and it's for the better, is collaboration.
Oh yeah.
It's the one man band. Like, the guy sits with the pen and behind the big desk and just does this. That doesn't work. People work from home, but collaborative. Like, hey guys, how can we do this? And so I like to ask really insightful questions, discovery questions with my team.
Yep.
And what you'll find is, emotionally intelligently speaking, until somebody has spoken, they won't agree fully.
Right.
If they haven't been heard, they won't agree.
That is so true.
And so if you don't get their opinion on the table and then actually go, you know what, I see where you're coming from, or let's use some of that, or, oh man, I'm sorry you're struggling with that. If you don't engage with somebody's opinion, they're not fully invested as a team into what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And so collaboration is a huge part of culture. It's not like I'm telling the culture. Culture is actually something you've decided to be, and you live it. You don't tell people the culture and expect them to live up to it without you embodying the culture.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, that you are the.
You don't just put core values up for.
Well,
just
if I
core
want to change
values,
the culture
right?
of my
Right.
organization, I change myself.
We tried that.
Well,
I just put core values
in
up
our
for
old
just
church.
yeah,
It was like,
for real.
oh, you need a vision, you need a mission, we need core values.
Yeah.
But it wasn't coming from the leadership. Honestly, it was coming from.
Well, you have to have the heart,
Well, you can tell like core values that are generic. Oh, integrity, excellence. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so tell me about the integrity. Like, why is that a core value? What does that do to your culture? What does that
Yeah, and how do you live?
gotta have
Why
your
does
body.
it,
How do
why
you
does it
live it?
bother you? Like, how does it affect the team?
Yeah.
I mean, part of it's like, if you want to change your culture, change yourself.
Bingo.
You are the culture, and so like
a mirror.
this is a good one. Like,
It's a mirror.
like our church, like exactly. Well, it's a mirror and a window, right? I mean, because
Oh, yeah.
the mirror is, hey, you guys did great, right? You've seen this before, the mirror and the window, right? And you always get the praise of the people. You correct to the culture, and you praise to the culture. The two things people like praise. If you celebrate the culture, people replicate it. If you correct it, like you go to the zoo, there's signs down the path, and it says if you see something, say something. And I've got to the point where it's not just see something. I would say if you sense something, because culture, like I get irritated as a leader when somebody 6 months, or you say something and someone's like, oh yeah, I noticed that like 6 months ago. I really felt that, and it's like,
Why did you say
Why did you say
something?
something?
Yeah.
Well, I just sensed this, and it's like, so I start using the words like, and this is Lencioni as well,
Yeah.
like Crucial Conversations, but
Yeah.
it feels like, seems like, and looks like. So they're not
might be.
like they're not
Feels
just like
like,
I'm pointing the
seems like,
finger,
looks
but like it just seems like we're on the same page. It feels like you're really struggling in this role. And so I'm not like trying to like put something to bound. It just they're very softening words, but that's emotional intelligence. Like I'm not trying to come at you. I just want to get to understand what's going on.
Right, because you come across as I'm really just trying to understand.
Yeah.
I had a situation with my last business, the one that we sold, where just things were not happening. We were getting callbacks, and I mean, in 1 week, I think in callbacks alone, it was like $15,000.
Wow. Yeah.
Sucked really bad. I was pissed. I called everybody into a meeting. And I kind of felt the Holy Spirit say, like, okay, like,
Yeah.
you know, have you been fostering that culture? Have you, you know, all the stuff that we're talking about right now? And I just kind of felt the Holy Spirit say, hey, this one person, pull him aside before you talk and ask him how he's doing.
Yeah.
Really?
Like, I'm like, I really don't want to because that's the person that's pissing me off right now,
Yeah.
right? Like, but then I was like, I'll just pretend it was Jared. Jared, hey, it seems like, it looks like, dude, are you okay? Help me to understand, because this is not like you to get all these callbacks. You know, he broke down, mother's going through cancer, all this kind of stuff, and it's like I was about to chew everybody out. Like I felt like I had the right to be pissed.
Paradigm shift, right?
Paradigm shift, yeah. I'm like, holy crap.
Yep.
And on top of that, I canceled the last 3 team meetings where we talk about our vision, mission, core values. So whose fault was it really?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's
You know?
and as a leader,
Yeah.
it's like I failed to lead is the conversation we have to tell ourselves.
Boom.
It's not like I get a lot of like, well, if they would or they won't.
Yeah.
You get a lot of that, but at the end of the day, it's like I have failed to lead them too. Like we need to get there. How can we? And so like they always say if you want to raise money, you don't ask people for money. You ask people how. You don't say like, hey, I'm trying to build a building. How can I build a building? You go to people and you say, how can I do this? And so you're coming to this humility and this perspective, and there's this trust in a conversation, like I said, collaboratively happening. It's not you just like paying people up for $1. Like you're inviting people into the conversation, and you're inviting them into a solution. And when people are part of a solution, guess what? We walk out and we hold hand in hand.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
And then there's accountability because like, hey, we agreed to that. Remember, it's like, yeah, no, I need it. I just kind of follow the bandwagon.
That's like coaching.
It's not like, well, I didn't make that decision. Oh, corporate upstairs, corporate decided.
Right. Because they're like, hey, they chose it, yeah.
You can create those different levels in your organization by like authority, how decisions made, and if you can push that yes down. One of the greatest things, this is back to Furtick, but like, how does he actually lead? Is he dictates his leadership. So like, he's not just saying like, hey, we need to do this. He's actually saying, hey, this is why. And so they're learning the context of your decision because a leader thinks differently.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
All right. Well, we do have to wrap up here.
Yep.
And so
I think we need a part 2.
we probably should. Yeah.
I want to know more about the DIC, right?
Get into
Good
more
stuff
of
is
that.
coming out of it, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Pastor Sean, is there a way that people could follow you or follow the church or like what's?
I would say follow me on social media, but that'd be great. But I'd say just check the church out, reallifechurchkc.com.
Lifechurchkc.com.
Real life.
Yeah, real
Oh,
life church.
real life
Yep.
church.
Reallifechurchkc.com.
South Kansas City.
What he said, yep.
Yep.
What part of
Yeah.
South Kansas City? Like, where?
Raymore.
Raymore. Okay,
Raymore
cool.
building. Yep.
And like just a tiny tidbit there is like they believe in trying things and trying new things in order to reach people. And I say they, but it's me too. I'm part of it. And so you've partnered up and tried to change ways, and you do this whole thing. I don't know if you heard of this, but it's called Plan Your Visit. And so like, and from a marketing standpoint, this is like brilliant because what's the call to action for a church website? It's a million things.
It's
But
informative.
but you know, like how for me, my I had to change my business to do one call to action as well.
Right.
Which is get a discovery call.
Right.
And this is kind of like that. It's like
very
plan your
similar.
visit. It's
clear.
like it's
Yeah.
This is what we want you
These
to
are the
do.
times. These are the days we're out here.
And of course, people can do it the other way. They can run into you and just have a meeting or just show up and stuff, and that's all listed and the information's there. But the call to action is to plan your visit, and it actually is good both ways too. It's not just marketing. It's like there's substance behind it because a lot of people are introverted, or what's the number one reason why people don't go to church? Maybe they don't know someone. I don't know. What do you think is like, real quick, the number one reason someone wouldn't go to church?
Oh, they're worried about fitting in. They don't know if they belong.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you had someone to come alongside you from the beginning,
Yeah.
and they walk with you and sit by you in church, would that change it? Because then they feel like they belong.
That is a brilliant idea. Did you come up with
they
that?
do that.
No. There's a great group of people that came with the idea. And the same thing is this: even if they just see the call to action over and over again, the fact that they feel invited, because you get a lot of places just like it's very informative, but to say like, oh, they really want me to go.
Yeah.
Like that's intuitive. Like from a church leadership standpoint, we assume like, oh, people at the website, they just want to see if they're coming. And we just tell people like, we really want you here.
Yeah.
And we make it very clear. So even if they don't click the button, like last week we had 12 first-time guests just
Sweet.
show it from that, So
Yeah.
it's been a very helpful tool.
And I'm not like the front person or anything.
Every now and then, right?
I'm always like a behind the scenes kind of person, and I am still hearing like people all the time about our church is,
Yeah.
you guys are so friendly. Like,
Yep.
we feel like we belong and like blah, blah, blah. Like there's people that felt like the building was going to burn down.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, here I am shooting his testimonial video
Mm-hmm.
because of life change through all that.
That is so
And
awesome.
it's really cool.
Yeah.
But anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Go and give Real Life Church KC a visit on the website.
And if you want to go to church, plan your visit. It's right there, right? So
they're on social media as well. And as always, make sure to keep on keeping on.
and stay strong, y'all.